Yeah, I'm going to call the meeting to order. We're going to rise for the pledge of allegiance. Pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Now, entertain a motion to approve the agenda for today's special meeting. Second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? I have no president's remarks, so the floor is open for public comments. I'd like to remind anyone who makes public comments it is restricted to the content of the special meeting. Are there any public comments? Seeing none. We have.
Sorry. Bit noisy.
I'm going to ask Steve to read his motion to adjourn to closed session.
At the meeting of the Board of Directors of Open Pines Association Incorporated held on the 17th day of August at 1 p.m. in, Tuttle Administration Building in the East Room, the board voted to adjourn to closed session for the purpose of discussing recent actions by an employee of the association specifically pertaining to performance as permitted by the Maryland Homeowners Association Act 11B-114, parentheses I.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, now, before I call for discussion, I would like to do this a little more organized. And if it's okay with everyone, I'm going to ask individual directors to go ahead and give their discussion, if they have any, on this motion. And then we'll move on from there.
We
So
don't do discussion before closed motion. This is a closed meeting. We're supposed to do discussion about the motion on the meeting, correct?
we are doing a discussion about the motion, Tom.
Okay.
That's what this discussion is about. So,
Never seen that happen before.
well, I'm running the meeting today, Tom, and this is how I'm going to run it.
I got you. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Steve, I'd like to start with you if you have any discussions on your motion.
I have no discussion on the motion.
Tom, do you have any discussions on your motion?
Yes, I have a discussion that this is a motion about an employee, not specified anywhere within this motion. I feel we should go into closed session right now.
Doug, do you have any discussion on the motion?
Motion is plain and simple, move to closed session.
Colette?
The subject of this motion, if we're to believe the press, has already been made public. And so I'm not sure that we really need to go into closed session to discuss it since it's already been made public. And secondly, if we're gonna believe the press, the press said that this was a discussion of GM conduct. And what was reported in the press was an action by a sitting director in which she requested information from our GM to help her decide how she might vote on an initiative, which is within her right. So I don't really see why we're going into closed session for this
Can I respond?
discussion.
I'll give you an opportunity to respond once everyone has their opportunity to discuss, give their discussion. Do you have any other discussion on it, Colette?
No.
Frank?
If I can ask a question first before the discussion. Is the content of that article accurate, Steve and Tom?
I haven't read the article.
I don't know what.
Okay. From the article that I read, let me kind of summarize it this way. It appears that Cammie, in violating no rules of the association and in exercising her right to the First Amendment of the U.S. Constitution, asked John Viola a question or an opinion. John, in violating no issues with the association and in exercising his right under the First Amendment of the Constitution, answered, "This is not an issue for closed session. I want this discussion out in the open."
Okay, can I answer that?
I'll give you an opportunity when we're done.
Go ahead.
Complete.
Okay.
Any other comment, Frank?
No.
Camille?
Yes, I've got plenty to say about this. I don't think, this has been a very, very disappointing couple of days. I have received, and excuse me for going off topic, but I've received 15 terrible emails, 15 terrible emails and texts. And it's been very hurtful, very, very, very hurtful. I can tell you that I do not think we need to go into closed session. I have all of the text from Debbie Bloom, who was a friend of mine that I met at the pool a couple of years ago. And in that, if we were to go on, I certainly would introduce this document to you, and I will let you read all of those texts in the order that they were received and what was said. But particularly of note is that I wrote that I based that, well, let me back up. I did due diligence on this. I'm a lawyer. It's what we do. And I'm sure that Jeremy would agree with me. I interviewed Steve. I interviewed Larry. I asked them the same questions. I asked them what the priorities for our organization were and how they would affect those organizational priorities. I asked them what their leadership skill was. As being put, both of them were very honest and open with me. Steve shared some issues that he had that he had made corrections for. But be that as it may, this text that has been so discussed and called into question shows that I think it very clearly demonstrates that I said, and that Debbie Bloom, who is the source of all this information, after I said to her, in rereading all this, I want to make it clear that John Viola did not tell me who to vote for. He would not interfere like that. To which Debbie said, I understand that. And so I don't know what the basis of this is. John, we are lucky to have John Viola here. I mean, that is very, very, very clear to me. I hope it's clear to everyone in this room. We have accomplished at least 15 objectives this year in building new police departments and building new everything. I asked John, when I called him, I said to him, I'd like to talk to you about this election because I apparently in the swing vote, I don't take this lightly. I want to make a decision that is well thought out, that exercises my due diligence, and I'd like to know what you said. John said to me, and John, I'd ask you to correct me if I'm wrong. You said, I can work with any of them. I will work with any of them. There was no undue influence. There was no undue anything. And I think, in my personal opinion, this is a witch hunt. I think this is the beginning of a witch hunt, and I think that's really, 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 really sad. I think this is an attempt to squeeze John out for whatever other agenda exists out there, and I think I know what it is. But this is just sad. This is really, really, really sad. And I've hired private counsel on this, and my private counsel has said to me, you've got a good case in defamation. But you know something? I'm not going to do that. I'm above that. I want us to work as a team. I want to resolve this. We don't need to go into closed session. John Viola has done nothing wrong. I'm the one that said it to, and he said nothing that was violative of any HOA rules that I know of.
Okay, anything else, Cameron?
No, that's quite it.
Okay, so let me put in my discussion on this issue. First off, my concern as the president of the association, besides the impact on our general manager and Camilla, based on the interview that was given to the Ocean Pines Progress, besides the impact on them, my main concern and first concern has to be the Ocean Pines Association. When I received the request for the closed session last week, I had no idea what this was about. Didn't find out what it was about until yesterday morning when I read the Ocean Pines Progress, where Director Janaszak discussed with the press and an alleged performance issue with an employee of the association in violation of our code of conduct and the bylaws POA. In addition to that, my real concern was that those comments in the press could open up Ocean Pines to, as Cammie has alluded to allegations of defamation, whether implicit or actual, against Ocean Pines by not only our general manager, but another sitting director. It's very disappointing to me. So I agree with, from what I'm hearing, some other directors here, that there's no need to go into closed session because Director Viola, or Director Janusek, has already laid out what the closed session meeting discussion was to be in the newspaper article.
I object.
I'm not
I object.
done yet.
I object.
I am
know that
not,
that's
you'll have your
issue.
opportunity. You'll have your opportunity. After reading the article on Monday, I did consult with our attorney to make sure that the allegations, whether or not there was anything in our bylaws that prohibits the general manager from having discussions of these nature, if in fact they did occur, and he vehemently denies it, and as you just heard from Director Rogers, she vehemently denies that there was any undue influence on her regarding the officer's vote. So again, my concern is that these actions, this interview with the press, laying out what was intended to be a closed session meeting that is published on Sunday morning, when in fact the meeting was scheduled for Monday at 1 o'clock, I find very discouraging. So my inclination is that the information has already been put out to the public, and I don't believe I will be voting to move into closed session. Tom, if you have some other comments,
I do.
please.
I do. I first off, what was in the progress was nothing that I said of their conversation because I didn't know about it. What I was told was, what I said was, I was told what the vote was supposed to be and it wasn't. Secondly, that you have no idea about the issues that we're going to speak of in closed session. It's not necessarily specific to what was written in whatever's written in the progress. It might be something completely different you don't know. And it is. So I still would like to go into closed session to discuss it. It's not just about his conversation with Cammie 0 hours before the vote for presidency. I understand. I can see where it's going. I can see the 4-3 that's going to happen for the next year. I get it. But I'm telling you, it's not just about what was written about in the progress. That's why I want to go into closed session.
Well, Tom, what is
Nothing
it
to do with
about?
it.
Hold on.
I'm not going to speak over that. She's sitting here.
Hold on.
Go ahead.
Then, Tom?
Yeah.
Then, I'm the president of the association.
Sure.
Doug was the president of the association. I'm assuming whatever misconduct you're talking about happened while Doug was the president. And if in fact that's the case, did you go to Doug, who is John's direct supervisor? And it appears you did not, because unless, correct me if I'm wrong, did you go to Doug to tell him of this misconduct?
I don't remember if I told Doug or not.
Okay, well, if you did or you didn't, then the proper procedure would be for you to come to me with the information. And if an independent investigation needed to occur based on what the allegations are, we can make that happen.
Well, let me see something. Wouldn't the direction go to closed session to discuss employee information and then decide on which direction we're going to go in order to iron that out and find out what happened and if it happened and when it happened? Couldn't that be how it works, not the other way around? We come to you and tell you what he said and what happened, and then you go find out whether it's happened, and then we go to closed session and do it? That's not how we've ever done it before.
We could do it either way.
Huh?
We could do it either way.
I don't want to do it that way, because then all of a sudden it's out in the public and everybody knows. What's the point?
You got it?
Just, I stated earlier, based on simplicity, that we've got a motion on the floor to go to closed session. I felt like that's the right thing to do. Hearing everybody else's opinion on it now, I don't have a problem not going into closed session. However, I want to make sure we don't go into closed session for the right reasons. I'm not going to have the media dictate whether or not we need to go into closed session. We're setting a bad precedent if we let that happen. Okay? If we decide we don't want to go into closed session, it's because of our decision, not the media's. Number two, I do think Tom brings up a good point. I think that there might be some, I don't personally don't have any, but there might be some information that's probably relevant to a closed session rather than an open one, but it's speculation on my part. So I would just ask for some level of consideration. Maybe we can, have a little bit more of a closed session discussion to help the overall team. But, I just wanted to clarify my approach. And again, I'm ambivalent to the closed or open, but let's make sure that if we don't go into closed session, it's not because the media decided it for us.
Steve?
Yes, there is more than just the issue in terms of John's conversation with Tammy. I will not discuss it in an open session. But there is a second issue that is a concern to me that I would like us to talk about as a team, because I think it affects how we move forward as a board. And it's not a witch hunt. I've worked with John for over 18 months, and I have deeply appreciated the work he's done and given to our community, and I support him 100%. It's not a witch hunt on my part.
Any other comment? Colette?
Yeah, I just want to clarify for Doug, it's not the press dictating whether we're going into closed session or not. It's what members of this board shared with the press that, in my view, makes, absent additional information that Steve is referencing, absent that information, means that we really don't need to go into closed session. But I will respect Steve, the information that Steve is saying that he would like to bring to this discussion in closed session.
As will I.
Any further discussion?
Yes. I just want to, just learning of this as we're coming, it seems that there's two issues, right? There's one, the alleged conversation and the vote that occurred in that, which sounds like the room is at an open to not go into closed session. And then there seems to be a secondary issue, which is other issues related to the general manager that would, and unrelated directly to any alleged conversation regarding the election of the officers. If that is indeed the case, then may I suggest that we bifurcate the two issues and perhaps go into closed session if there is something to discuss directly related to the general manager in closed session, but anything related to the vote be discussed in open session.
Any further discussion?
Yeah, I have no reason to discuss anything that happened with the vote. That had nothing to do with the closed session remarks. So it's for closed session. So I don't need to discuss that at all personally. That it was an issue regarding personnel. That's why we're going into closed session. That's why we always go into closed session. I have no issue. I won't speak about the election. It doesn't matter. I'm not going into closed session for that. So if we're going to do that in open, I can recuse myself if we're not going to go to closed session.
Any further discussion? Seeing no further discussion, I'll call for the question. All in favor of going into closed session, please raise your hand. Any opposed? Motion carries. At this point, I would ask everyone else to please leave. We're going to go into closed session except adjournment. Josh, would you please turn the video off?